You're listening to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast, and I'm your host, Britt Olson. Guided by my own intuition, my intention is to deliver genuine conversations centered around health and wellness, spirituality, self-expression, and culture. In this space, I will provide you with real-life stories, theories, and inspiring perspectives to help you uncover and tap into your own true potential. I'm so grateful you've chosen to tune in with me on this mindful exploration to living a more fluid life through a deeper connection to the soul. Now let's dive into today's journey. Welcome to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast. I'm your host, Britt Olson, and it is such an honor to have you joining us here today and holding space for yet another truly soulful conversation. I'm truly honored to bring the lovely Leya Van Doren, a creative coach and mermaid goddess of the Northeastern U.S., to join us today for a conversation about creativity, spirituality, and the metaphors along with the vast and beautiful ocean that we have surrounding us. So this episode is truly so special, as personally, it honestly speaks directly into my soul on so many different levels, and I have no doubt that it will for everyone else too. Just the amount of goosebumps I was flooded with throughout this entire conversation was just at another level. It was truly so magical to hold space with Leya, and I don't use that word lightly, as to me it is the best way to describe this conversation, with yet just another soul sister, which the amount of soul sisters I've been connected with this year, including Leya and so many guests on here and new friends via Instagram, has certainly been no coincidence and has just been such a blessing. And to me is also just a showcase of where we are headed as a collective focused on love. We have so much to be celebrating right now, especially just celebrating moving towards love and following our intuitions and hearts and what our souls are trying to speak to us. So yeah, it's been amazing. The power of connection is so vibrant right now. And as most of you know, I don't believe in coincidences and only divine synchronicities, but I just have no doubt that this episode also could not be getting released at a more perfect time for all of us, especially the just overall resonating message of the importance of slowing down and honoring oneself, which, speaking of slowing down, I only have 2 more episodes left of 2020 before I take a full break in December to then fully ramp up and start back fresh come 2021. My soul has truly just been calling for a break, and I could not be more excited to take this break and do this for myself. And I highly encourage all of you to also take a break with me if that's what your soul has been calling for. There is truly so much power in slowing down and taking a break where needed. So definitely do so. And if you aren't inspired to yet, I have no doubt that this episode will actually inspire you to check back in and reconnect with that beautiful soul that resides inside of you. Also, do not forget, our final Modern Wellness Community Morning of 2020 is coming up on Friday, November 20th, starting at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And of course, if people are not able to attend, we do send out the link to rewatch the meetup after the fact. And these meetups are always free. And to that point of rewatching them, they are always hosted on Zoom so that you can comfortably join from whatever location feels comfortable to you. This November meetup for 2020 will be the final meetup, and we will start back up again with these monthly meetups the last Friday of January 2021. Crazy to think that this year is almost over. Oh, yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, yeah, definitely join us come November 20th. These mornings are always free, and really I just developed them as a way for like-minded beings, wellness enthusiasts, creatives, individuals with an open heart and curiosity, and so forth, to come together to learn something new, start the day off right, and close out the month with intention. We have had so many beautiful meetups this year, and I'm just so excited for our final one on November 20th, as we will be joined by Carrie McGinn of Live Good, Feel Good. And Carrie is a yogi, physical therapist, and personal trainer. And she has actually been on the podcast as well. So if you skip back a few episodes, you will see Carrie's episode, which is so wonderful. But at this free meetup, Carrie will be discussing mindful ways to move and breathe through the holiday season so that we can really start to feel good in our mind, body, and soul. And she will chat through different ways as to how to move well while traveling in order to prevent common travel discomforts, improve fascia mobility and lymphatic flow, as well as to really support the nervous system for whatever the season has to throw at us. So, as you all know, the holidays can be a stressful time, especially after this year, just a lot of unknown and energy just in the energy forecast. So yeah, definitely join us Friday, November 20th, starting at 8 a.m. on Zoom. The link is in the show notes, as you do have to register, so that way we can send you the link. And I hope to see you there. On top of it, I also have lots of exciting programs that will be launching soon in order to properly kick off 2021 on the right foot. So if you are interested in learning more about those, there's also a link in the show notes. But otherwise, let's get on to today's episode with Leya Van Doren. Leya, first of all, I'm so excited to have you on here. We connected through Instagram. I think it was through the Balanced Blonde, maybe originally is how we started following each other.
Yeah, it must have been.
Yeah, so cool. Well, I love it. I've been loving your posts and just everything that you speak for. So I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. And you are so accomplished. You are a creative coach. You do workshops. I know you have your creative circles. You also have a published book of poetry. And I think you've even produced your own show in New York City. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I did a one-woman show last year.
Amazing. So you are like all things creativity, ocean, spirituality, just kind of all wrapped in. I love it.
Yes, you have me to the T. I'm like, oh, what I am putting out, someone does receive. And like, you do see me. So thank you for seeing me. And thank you for having me on. I'm super excited.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on here. Do you want to go ahead before we get started, just kind of tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from?
Yeah. So, let's see. I'm like you said, I'm a creativity coach, but I found this career path very like twists and turns of the path, right? It hasn't been a linear path. And I still feel like I'm totally discovering who I am and my purpose here on earth. And so I come from a very musical family. I actually grew up in Pennsylvania, and my mom was a piano and voice teacher when I was growing up, and my dad was the music director of a regional theater. So I grew up in the theater. I grew up learning music, performing on stage. Theater was my life growing up. So I was very immersed in the arts as a kid. And that definitely contributed to like how artistic and creative I am today, because that's always been such a big part of my life. And when I was growing up, I really wanted to be an actor. That was like my dream. I loved theater. Musical theater was my one and only passion in life. And I loved reading, and I loved reading books and going to the ocean and all those things I still do today. So I ended up going to college for musical theater, and I studied musical theater I went to the University of California, Irvine. And then I graduated college thinking that I was going to move to New York City and like start the grind of going to audition after audition and living that non-equity life, which is hard because there's so many people who want to do this thing. And, you go to school to get a degree, and it doesn't mean that you're going to have a job. And, that's kind of the artist's life. But I was so ready and prepared for the artist's life. And I was like, if someone can like hit the pavement, I can hit the pavement. And I was so ready for that. But life took me in a different direction. And I was planning to move to New York City after graduating. But instead, I got a job. I got an apprenticeship at a theater in Connecticut. And I had never been to Connecticut, had no plans of moving to Connecticut. But suddenly this opportunity was presented to me after finding it. It was kind of like it was totally like spirit placed it in my path, and it was so out of the blue, but I just applied and I got it, and it felt like the right next thing. And so I ended up moving to Connecticut and spending, well, now it's been 3 years. It's been a lot of like ups and downs since then, but I got this job in Connecticut. And when I was living in Connecticut, I like was going through this whole identity crisis of who I was as an artist and how was I going to make my dreams happen. I knew my whole life I wanted to be an actor. My whole life I wanted to be on stage. But I was like, if I'm not auditioning and people, I hated the idea of like auditioning and like having someone else decide my fate and like trying to prove to other people that I was talented enough or worthy enough or, all those things to be cast in your show. When really all I wanted to do was like make art and be in creative community. And I just hated that it was so, as an artist, as an actor or any type of artist, that it seemed to be not in my control and not in my hands. And I was trying to think of like other ways that I could fulfill myself creatively. And the hard part, I guess, about the actor path was I felt like, in order to do theater, I need to be in community. I need to be in a show. I can't really like put on a show myself, or can I? And that's kind of why I did my one woman show, because it was this journey that I was going on and realizing that I do have the ability to make my dreams happen. And maybe it didn't look like I had expected it to, but I'm still able to now carve out this like alternate parallel path to what I thought an artist should and should be doing. And instead I'm doing these other things. And now with all the work that I've done myself, I'm helping other people kind of go through these, work through these creative blocks and these fears that hold them back, like thinking you have to be, I have to do this to be creative. I have to, have these like set of parameters, when really you can follow your heart and you can listen to your intuition and let that guide you. And that opens up so many creative, artistic possibilities, not only as an artist, but as a human, and, in living your life and listening to that voice from source. So the past couple of years since graduating college, I've been on this like total journey of really melding my creativity and spirituality together, because I really believe that they're like two paths to the same mountain. And they're really, the intersection of creativity and spirituality is what my work is about, because I think the true artist is that channel for source. And the true artist is letting their intuition guide them. And that's when you have, if you've ever seen a piece of music or heard, seen a painting, and you can kind of feel that like universal message in it, that's what it's about. So that's what my work is about. That's what I'm doing now. Yeah, it's just such a journey. And I feel really grateful to kind of be on this path, even though it's not always easy.
That's for sure. Definitely not always easy. And what a journey. I love that whole just path of yours and the way you described it. I feel like it's such a beautiful analogy for life in general, especially when through your days of looking to kind of be an actor, and then just what you said about you felt disconnected of having someone else dictate where you'd be going from there, versus that intuitive knowing of really following that intuition, universal guidance. So
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard because I was thinking about this today, because I was recently reflecting on like where I was my senior year of college, because that was kind of when I I had all these dreams, and it was kind of like you're on the precipice on like, okay, I'm going to make this leap into the real world, and this is when my dreams are going to happen. And it feels so hopeful and scary at the same time. But you have your friends around you, your community around you, you have your mentors, your teachers who have been there with you all throughout college. And then you graduate and it's just you. And like everyone goes back home where they're from, or maybe they stay in the same town, they find a job. It's like, it felt like this little like creative community that I had, this creative home that I had established for myself through studying. Then it was suddenly just broken open, and it was kind of like you're on your own again. So it was really hard to navigate kind of like being on your own, and knowing that like, okay, I don't always have a community to fall back on. I have to now go create community wherever I go. So that's kind of a big part of why I'm doing these creative circles, because I feel like artists can feel so isolated. I mean, and anyone can feel so isolated, but when you're going through these creative blocks and then there's something that something wants to come through you, but you're scared because you're telling yourself, who am I to do this? Or am I talented enough? Do I have what it takes? When you're sitting in community with other creative people, you realize that's something everyone goes through, and you can slowly, gently work through those together to know that that's just all part of the process. And that doesn't mean that, you're not meant to do something, that you shouldn't let those thoughts and those fears and those limiting beliefs stop you, but instead you just work with them because you recognize they're part of the creative process.
Isn't it funny how, as individuals and as human beings, when those limiting beliefs and doubt and all those stories in our head pop up, we suddenly isolate ourselves and literally start thinking, like, I'm the only one who thinks this. I'm the only one that's going through this. Or I have this great idea, but nobody's going to want it. Or da 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 da. And it's like you suddenly are just in this little box of just chaos that you've put yourself in, when really we're all experiencing it together, but nobody's talking about it unless you have an outlet like you or your creative circles.
Yeah, totally. And it's so funny because even when you know that in your brain, you do know that, every time you go through it, you still feel so alone, and you still feel like, I'm the only one who feels this way. And then you recognize, like, you're not that special. Everyone goes through it. And it's kind of, so it's like, it gets easier with practice, because I think in anything you do, whether that's like entrepreneurship, business, creativity, like anything, it comes up, all these imposter syndrome beliefs or whatever that may be. So it's funny to now, because this has really become my work, because I went through all of those limiting beliefs and had to like get myself out of it. So now it's funny to me when I see those pop up in like other areas of my life, and I'm like, Leya, you're having these thoughts. That just means it's part of the process. Like, you're on the right path. Just stay the course. So yeah.
100%. What were some of the things that you would do and probably still have to do? I mean, the work, like you just said, they pop back up. It really never ends. That's why we call it a journey. But when those things do pop up, what did you do initially? And then what have you kind of found that works today?
Yeah. So I've tried a bunch of different things. And I think for each person, it's the thing that I love about this work is that you can find what works for you. And then maybe you're the kind of person that can like stick with one thing, and that's what's going to help you, or it can change. So it's like, I've had to develop a whole toolkit of things that help me when I'm in those ruts. And sometimes one thing works and it really helps me, and maybe a different day it totally doesn't work and I have to try something new. So some of the things that I did were The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, which is a beautiful book. I talk about The Artist's Way all the time because it totally changed my perspective on all of these things. And a really important part of The Artist's Way is that there are 2 practices that you're supposed to adopt during the course of the course. And many artists, myself included, adopt these practices for a lifetime because they're so useful. And so those 2 practices are the morning pages and the artist date. So the morning pages are, you wake up and you write 3 pages, stream of consciousness, just journal entry, brain dump, whatever that is. And I did that practice every day for like a year. And now I do that practice probably like 4 times a week out of 7 days. So it's like, now I've kind of ingrained it into my system where it is a habit, but I don't do it every day, and I don't beat myself up if I don't do it every day. And it's like, now I do it when I need it and when I need to use it. So the morning pages are a great way to kind of just start a daily habit, a daily creative habit. And that way you can kind of see what's going on in your subconscious. And the art of writing and the practice of writing helps uncover so much. And that's what I love about writing. I don't even consider myself a writer, but I'm like, writing is one of those tools that allows you to access all of those things.
So true. One question really quick. Do you do the morning pages like as soon as you wake up, or will you like have some lemon water or coffee and then meditate first, or what is
I do them? I think I'm different, where I do them as soon as I wake up, because in the book she talks about when you first wake up, you're kind of in this like liminal space where you have maybe easier access to your subconscious. So some of the thoughts coming out right off the bat might be strange or disconnected, or you're kind of like still waking up. But I've actually found morning pages to be like taking a cup of coffee, because I'll wake up and I'm super tired and I'm writing, and like sometimes I'm writing like with my eyes half open, but then by the end of the third page, I'm awake and like I'm suddenly energized and like buzzing with energy. That's worked really well for me, but I see a lot of other people being like, I wake up and then I make my coffee and then I have, you know, set up my sacred space and do all these things and then I write my pages. But I'm like, that doesn't work for me. I have to like get them out right away, and then I start my day like feeling super clear headed. And then after I do my pages, I usually meditate. So meditation has been a big practice, a big thing in my toolkit.
Yeah.
Meditation, yoga. Another practice that I like, I'll talk about the artist state in a bit, but another practice that I like is like free form dancing, which actually Elizabeth Gilbert said this maybe on a podcast or a talk once, but she says she like puts on a song or she puts on a playlist for 10 minutes and is like, I just have to dance for 10 minutes and it doesn't matter what I look like. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm just going to listen to music and dance for 10 minutes. And I started to do that and it gets you so out of your head and into your body. And it's like, you're allowing you're allowing the music to literally move you. And that's actually a practice that I need to start doing again because I haven't done in a while.
I was that too, not from inspiration from her or anyone, but just kind of on my own started doing it. I call it like a 3-minute dance party where I'll just put on a song and just kind of like let myself, if I end up dancing or just kind of like rock out, jump around the house. And it's crazy what it does for your energy and vibration. And it just totally realigns you so fast.
Totally. It like changes your mood. And 3 minutes is all you need, which is just so fascinating to me because, yeah, that's actually a great reminder that I need to do it because lately I've been feeling like I write a lot, I meditate a lot, I go for walks, but I feel like a lot of my practices at this current moment, and this is why it's like you try different things, you change, you see what you need at a different moment. Kind of like cycles, like we were talking about before we started recording. We pulled a mermaid card from your mermaid oracle deck, and it was talking about the lunar cycles. And I totally believe as a human, and so like as a human, we have our human cycles. We live by the earth's cycles. As women, we have our own natural cycles. But I believe as creatives too, we also have natural cycles, and like those might work in tandem with your physical cycle or the lunar cycle, whatever it is. But, you know, you have those ups and downs of your like creative progress. So currently I'm in a moment where I feel like I've been doing very heady stuff like writing or meditation, but I'm like, I feel like I've been neglecting my body a bit and I need to get back in my body. And I think dancing is such a beautiful reminder to do that as a practice instead of like thinking all the time, because I'm a thinker and I need to counterbalance that with more like physical movement and expressing myself physically.
Yes, singing is so much fun too. I'm not like, I don't have a voice, but I love to.
You have a voice.
Yes, I do have a voice. Correct. It is my own very unique voice that I love so much. But I love blasting music and singing. Certain songs just do that same thing for me. They hit me and they pull, I think, like you were saying earlier, with that universal energy and alignment that comes through from a creativity standpoint.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Yeah. Singing, also a great way to do that. It's like any practice, anything that you love to do that, like you said, that gets you into that like alignment. And so for you, you know that the dancing and the singing gets you there. Mm-hmm. And so you know that you can pull on those at any time. Just like for me, I know that if I write a stream of consciousness, like if I write one page of stream of consciousness or whatever it is, I know that will get me out of my head and like into the present moment. And it allows me to work through resistance or any like ickiness or whatever. If I'm feeling nervous about something, or if I can feel like I'm purposely avoiding something because I know that like I need to do this thing, but I'm scared of it, so I'm not going to do it. Yep. You know, when you feel that resistance. So those are all tools that you can just work with, knowing that like, okay, if I just spend 3 minutes dancing or 3 minutes writing or whatever it is, I'm going to feel so much better. And you do. And that's when you kind of open up that creative channel and you allow yourself to be in that flow state. So then it just feels really, really good and really easy.
So fun. Oh, I love it. So many fun ways. I'm definitely going to do something when we wrap up here because I'm just feeling
We
like
have a
super
dance card.
inspired as you're talking. I've gotten into art journaling recently too, which is
Ooh.
kind of a conversation for another time, but that's even something as you were talking, I was like, ooh, I feel like I haven't art journaled in a little while. Like that might be something nice to do tonight.
What about that? I have to look that up.
Oh, it is so much fun. My friend is an art therapist. She taught me how to do it, but we'll kind of get into this and not to keep this about me. I want to get back to you, but the way I've utilized art journaling in my practice is after I meditate, if I have a really visual meditation, which has been happening a lot for me, I have actually turned to art journaling and will sketch out or paint or if any words came through and put it. It is so much fun. I think you'll love it. I don't want to butcher the description because I do that too often, but I'll send you some links and kind of show you mine after.
Yeah, I would love to look at that. That's so cool.
You'll love it. But anyway, back to the artist way and Julia Cameron, the second piece, which is the artist date, I believe.
Yes. So the artist date is essentially a date for you and your artist. So it's a commitment that you make to yourself to show up for yourself. And so just as you would make a commitment to a friend or a partner or a family member, if you are like, hey, let's meet for coffee at this time, what are the chances are that you guys are both going to bail? Probably very slim, depending, on the person.
Mm-hmm.
But so the idea is to kind of have that same relationship with your artist. So you would say, hey, we're going to make a date Friday at noon, and you think about what you would want to do. So that could be going for a walk. That could be, pre-COVID times, maybe going to a museum, going to a show or a concert by yourself, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It just matters that you do it alone and that you schedule it. It's intentional and you show up and you commit to your artist. And I love artist dates because I actually love, we were talking about solo travel, and I love solo travel because I feel like solo travel is essentially the extended version of an artist date for me, which I didn't really think about until right now. But yeah, in my normal life, I feel like it's hard for me to take, and that's the thing, it's hard for you to take time for yourself. And I mean, I'm sure myself and many other people, you have people around you all the time, or you have family, or you live with partners or whatever it is. So it's really hard to make a longer commitment to yourself. So in my normal life, I'll just go on walks or try to take a drive by myself every once in a while. But then it's I get this itch and this urge to go travel. And that's when I really have that extended artist date time. And the inspiration just flows, and it's you really get to be in deep relationship with yourself and really get to know yourself. So that's really beautiful. But yeah, it doesn't have to be that extensive. It can be 5-10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, however long, but just something that you show up for and is intentional, and you're communing with your artist and just noticing and paying attention.
Oh my gosh, I love that. You have me now jonesing to go on a solo trip because I've not done that in so long. And as I think collectively we all sit in 2020, how incredible would it be to just pick up and go to a far off destination and spend 5 days immersing ourselves in another culture?
Yeah, that's what I'm dreaming of.
Yes, that would be incredible. But speaking of solo travel that we've spoken about previously, as you noted on, and I love that analogy, by the way, of an extended artist date, is that full body chills. I completely agree.
Yeah, and that's funny because I had never said it like that before, but I'm like, oh, that's totally what it is. It's an extended artist day. That's awesome.
It makes so much sense. But we mentioned earlier the Jordan Younger, who's the Balanced Blonde, who's a podcast and just spiritual guide for so many of us. She does so many things. She's amazing. But you were solo traveling, I think it was last year or maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was last fall. So it was in November of 2019.
Cool. And you were doing a little trip. You had gotten your yoga teacher training in India, and then you were in Bali. What was I know that trip in just several months for you was quite a big piece, and what an extended artist date that was as well. Do you just want to go into a little bit about that trip?
Yeah, that trip was really pivotal for me in my journey because at the time, like I mentioned, I was working at the theater in Connecticut, and I was really feeling creatively blocked and really feeling stuck, really feeling like an imposter. Who am I to be an artist? Blah, blah, blah. who am I to make my dreams happen? And I was working at the time a 9 to 5 job in an office. And I was really feeling stifled by that and like not really knowing kind of how to, I guess, just the idea of a support jobs as an artist. And a lot of artists take like jobs. This is my thing. And I haven't said this to a lot of other people. And it's maybe I'm feeling like I have permission to say it to you because you're not in this world, but because I don't want to like feel like I have judgment on other people. But so a lot of artists, they go to college, they get a degree in theater, whatever it is. I'm speaking about theater because that's what world I come from. And then, you know, in order to get a job as an artist, as an actor, they have to take jobs like waitressing or babysitting, nannying, working at coffee shops, just like those things, those jobs that are flexible, but that you definitely didn't need a college degree for, you know?
Yeah.
And I was so prepared to like take on that kind of work because it's fun, it's flexible, whatever. But there was something about it that I was like, wait a second, I have a college degree. Like I should be using my college degree. And why am I going to go be a babysitter when I could like get, I don't even want to say real job, but anyways, I found myself having this 9 to 5 office job, which felt like a quote unquote real job, even though I felt really stuck and stifled in it and felt like I should be doing some of those more flexible jobs so that I could spend more time in my art or have time to audition or whatever that is. But so I made this decision to leave this job because I had wanted to move to New York and I was kind of overworking in an office. And I was like, I had always wanted to travel and I hadn't given myself a lot of time off to travel because as soon as I left school, I was working and I just didn't have like a gap in my life. And so I intentionally made this gap where I was like, I want to leave this job and I want to go on this 3-month trip. I went to India, Bali, and Thailand. And then after that, I moved to New York. So it was like, I knew I was going to move to New York, but I was essentially before I went on the trip, I was essentially leaving and I was getting rid of my job and my home. And so I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to come back to when I come back. And so it was really scary to like make that leap because I just had no idea what the future had. And like, I was not going to come back to some stable thing. And it really felt like the ground beneath me was like crumbling. And so I really felt, which was really scary. It was like me facing my fears all at once of like, well, how am I going to be okay when I get back? Like, I don't have a job. I don't even have health insurance. Like, what if something happens to me on this trip and I'm going to be alone in a foreign country? Like, what do I do? I was having all of those fears, but it ended up being the most magical time of my life. And I really believe that like, because I took that leap, where my life is now versus where it was if I had stayed in that position when I knew that like it wasn't working for me anymore, my life would look so different today. And like everything worked out in the best possible way. And like it worked out so beautifully. And we started talking about this because of Jordan Younger, because when I was in Bali, she was on her honeymoon also in Bali. And I was sitting at this cafe called Alchemy in Ubud. And I was sitting by myself and I was like writing in my journal. I had ordered all these like juices and smoothies because it was my first time there and I had never been there, and their menu is like amazing. You just want to eat everything.
Oh, I feel that in those places, and it's so affordable too. I mean, I've done that. I order like 5 things just because I'm like, everything sounds so good, and why not? I'm just going to do it.
I know, and it's like even if I just take like a bite of one thing, like I don't know when I'm going to be back here, so I better like have it all. So exactly. I was having like myself like a beautiful feast, and then in walks Jordan, and I see her, and I'm like, oh my God, it's her. And then like her and her husband, they get a table and they're like talking, and like I feel like I've seen like my favorite celebrity. Like I was like freaking out, and I'm messaging my sister, and I'm like, oh my God, Jordan, the Ballast Blonde is here. What do I do? She's like, Leia, you have to go say hi. You have to go get a picture with her. And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm like so nervous. I was feeling so like, I don't want to bother them. They're on their honeymoon. And like, I don't want to be like a creepy super fan, you know, all those things.
You're like, she's just a human, but I love her so much. Like, she's such an inspirational figure.
Totally. Yeah. And she's been such a pivotal part in my journey too. and I think I was telling you this before, but she really helped me like accept the spiritual woo-woo side of me. And I really hate when people say the word woo-woo. So I'm like, why did I just say the word woo-woo? But a lot of people say it so much when they want to like kind of cover the fact that they're super spiritual. It's like, oh, I don't want to get too woo-woo on you. And like they use it as like that band-aid or like, and I notice myself like hiding behind the term, which I just need to dismantle that in myself, because it's like she helped me really, because we hadn't spoken about this, but when I was a teenager, I lived on an ashram, and I lived on an ashram for 2 years, and that's really where I got into yoga and meditation. But I was really embarrassed about the fact that I had lived at an ashram, because it's such an unusual thing, and no one really knows what that is, and like they think it's like maybe a cult, or like, I don't know, it feels like a very uncool thing to do, especially when you're a teenager. It's like,
as a kid.
Totally. And it's like, if I wanted friends over, it's like, well, I live at this ashram, which is this community of people. And it's like, you can't really have friends over. Like, it was a whole thing. So I was like really ashamed and embarrassed by it. And kind of had like rejected that like spiritual side of me. But when I listened to Jordan's podcast and she talks about Pleiadians and spirituality and all these different things, it like brought me back into that world of spirituality, and like she made spirituality cool for me again. And like that totally sparked my whole journey of then wanting to go to India to study on an ashram, to study yoga on an ashram. So it was like this total full circle moment. Yeah. And so then after I had completed my teacher training, I was in Bali. I see her in this cafe. My sister from across the world is like encouraging me to go say hi to her. I went and said hi to her. She was the sweetest. Like Jonathan came up and like we took selfies. She was just the absolute sweetest. And I was like, you've changed my life. Like I lived in an ashram and I thought it was so uncool. And then you made spirituality cool. And she's like, oh my gosh, what? I wish I lived in an ashram. Like that's so cool. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so it was just
so fun.
Yeah.
I love it. That's so amazing. And how cool too for her as well. I'm sure you probably brought so much healing and light to her of just that reminder of why she does what she does. Being able to hear someone all the way across the world in Bali come up and be like, you changed my life, which is so, so true. And I just love the way things go full circle like that. And what's even cooler is with the work that you do in helping people, you're also equally helping to change lives. So it's like, again, we're talking about cycles. I love the way these themes keep coming up in our conversation, but it's just this like ever spinning ball of energy.
Yeah, I love that. And like that kind of the impact that someone has, and you never know the impact that you have. Because I think that that's actually been, and it's actually interesting because I heard this on her recent solo episode that she did, or not her solo episode. She's talked about it with Jonathan about the idea of impact. And when you get like negative feedback or you get hate, and like she was saying that throughout her time podcasting, people have made fun of her voice and been like, I can't listen to you, your voice sucks, and like saying all these things that maybe you would have had fears about, but then it's like people are actually voicing and confirming your fears. But you just can't pay attention to those people, because that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if someone thinks that you suck, because then you're not for them. But think about all the lives that she has changed. And then coming down into that, like whenever I have thoughts of like, who cares about this? People probably think I'm annoying, or whatever kind of stories you're telling yourself in your head. But then you don't hear how people are like, you really inspired me to go do this thing, or like whatever that is. So that's really something important to remember.
We always hear the negativity so much more, and it always speaks so much louder than the positivity that's going on. I mean, I know I've done that myself as well, just in things of like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. This is the best idea in the world. And then I'm like, oh, but what is so-and-so going to think of this? Or what are my friends going to think if I do this? Or what's my family going to think? And I had a woman said to me one time, she was like, you're so worried about what everyone's going to think all the time. But she was like, do you really think everyone's thinking about you all the time? Like, are you thinking? And I was like, no, actually, probably not. And she's like, exactly. Like, do you think of them all the time? And I was like, no, I don't, like, not at all. I don't care what they do. And she was like, exactly. So, yeah.
I love that. That's such a good point, because we want to like make it all about us, when in reality, no one's thinking about you. So it's like,
Nobody gives a shit.
Right. Kind of that thing of like, you're not that special. So it's like you telling
Yes.
yourself all these things, like you're really, you are that special, but you're also not that special. We're all just kind of concerned about what we're doing. And if someone doesn't like it, who cares?
Oh, it's so true. So on your trip then, which that sounds amazing. Oh my gosh, just your experiences in India and Bali and Thailand, which Bali and Thailand are two countries that are so close and special to my heart as well. India, a place I hope to go to soon. But that trip kind of unlocked a lot of reopened up along with Jordan's help with our podcast and everything like that, your spiritual side and that spiritual journey and awakening and just everything that you went through. How has that now blended in with your creative side and kind of what does that mix look like for you?
I really love that question. Oh, that's such a good question because I don't think I had really thought how it affected me artistically or like creatively. But one of the biggest lessons that I learned during that like 3 months alone was really one about facing my fears and like and trusting my intuition. Like I had this, I remember I had this moment right before I left and I was about to like give up my apartment, the place that I was living, give up my job, and like my boyfriend lived there and I was worried about my relationship with him and if I leave will I ever come back, like what's all that about. And I was worried too, like, well, what if I get a disease and die? Like I was having these like insane fears.
All the things naturally.
Totally. And I heard this voice of like, you wouldn't have this desire if you weren't meant to do this. So you can just trust, you can just surrender and trust. And it was so amazing and gave me so many lessons and things that I needed. I really learned that like to really, it's like that idea of just like really trusting your intuition and knowing, because also people were telling, I had all these people in my life telling me not to do it. They were like, it's not responsible to quit your job. Like you should stay another year. They were giving me all this advice, like, don't do it, don't do it. But I had this knowing inside of me that was like, this is something I have to do. And looking back again, like just taking that leap has changed my whole life this year. My situation with COVID would have looked so different if I had not left when I left. I mean, even the fact that I left in October when people were telling me to go the next year, it would never have happened.
Oh my
like
gosh,
with COVID and everything. It's insane.
Yeah.
So it was like learning to really trust my intuition and giving myself permission that when everyone else is telling me different things, it doesn't matter. What am I saying? What is my inner voice saying? And like really tuning into that inner voice has been huge. And I think the way that's shown up in my creative work, and especially what I've been doing now with my creativity circles, and I do this like writing workshop, it's all about tuning into your inner voice and like listening to what your intuition and your heart and your soul has to say, and like really just nourishing that part of yourself and believing that you're enough, you're worthy of that time. I think subconsciously or consciously, we don't make that time for ourselves, or like we don't give ourselves that permission to unplug and spend an hour on our creativity because we think that it's not worth it, or we kind of get into like hustle mindset of, well, what am I going to produce out of this? Can I make money off of this? Like we get into that kind of like productivity addicted capitalistic mindset. And I've had to deal with that a lot of like, well, like, what is this for? This has to be purposeful. When in reality, it's like, no, time that you spend with yourself, nourishing yourself, whether that's like working on a book that you want to eventually publish or just doodling or doing your art journaling. It's like that mindful, intentional activity gives you so much for all other areas of your life and like allows you to slow down, quiet all the external noise, and really listen to that inner voice.
So cool. Yeah, I love that so much. It's interesting too, because as like an entrepreneur myself, I've definitely had to catch myself of losing that creative spark whenever I get too focused on, shoot, I need to make money. I need to make money. And we kind of go down that hole of like, I have bills coming up, etc. But I feel like for artists in general, artists are kind of more, and this might just be like dialogues that I've heard or kind of thing, situations I've been in the past, but I feel like artists in particular have a really strong need to, I need to make money through my art. And you touched on it a little bit, but I would imagine that could kind of really alter the creative process. And how do people get out of that? Because at the same time, like, you still have bills, you still have rent, like we have all these expenses that aren't going anywhere, but then you have that free space in your mind to not worry about that, to create.
Yeah, so that's actually something that I've had to figure out for myself because right, when you have this like creative artistic innate need to create and to be artistic, we've now made it into a thing where, oh, if you're good at this, how about you make a career out of this? Now you have to make money out of this. And that puts so much pressure on your artistic child, your artistic inner child, that it can be really hard to kind of, because at the end of the day, a job is a job. So it's like, even if your job, I think there's this like false idea, at least that I was taught in school and stuff, of like, you're so lucky if you get to be a professional artist. You are so lucky if you get to be paid for doing what you love. As if that was like, you know, if someone was going to pay you anything, you should just be so grateful that someone's willing to pay you for your art. But something I've had to really find in myself, because I think that's one of the big things that was blocking me, that I was gearing myself to be an actor, which means I had to market Leya, who I am, as a business card. And so I could walk into an audition room and someone would know exactly how they can cast me. And that's what I found so icky about it. And that's what kind of blocked me. So I had to let all of that go. And I think what really helped actually is having the way that I make money not be from my art. Mm-hmm. And Elizabeth Gilbert actually talks about this in Big Magic too, of like, she made a commitment to her artist when she was a young writer, aspiring writer. And she made a commitment to her artist that, I will never expect you to pay my bills. I will take care of you. Like, I will take care of us. I will do whatever I need to do in order to be with you and to commune with my inner writer, my inner artist. And for me, and I think that people are different and maybe one way works better for them. But for me, I was like, I need to feel secure and know when my next paycheck is coming in order to be creative. Because as soon as, it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I talk about this a lot, but if you're worried about making your rent, then you're not going to be creative, because all of your energy is your root chakra is like so unbalanced. You have to be really feeling safe and secure in order to open up those, upper chakras, and in order to have that inspiration and creativity to come through. Because if you're putting pressure on it and you're like, but I have to in order to survive, it's going to be much harder to come at it from that like grounded space. Because I think in order to be really creative, you have to set these conditions where you can kind of flow and be really free and allow yourself to follow the path of curiosity and kind of take these twists and turns. But if you're like, well, I have a deadline and I have to make money from this, then it's going to be much, much harder.
Yeah. It's like, it always has to live in that want to state versus a have to. It's like, once you get into that have to, then you're skating in like super sketchy territory.
Yeah. Because you're kind of setting expectation. And I think in order to have true creativity to flow, you have to release all expectation. And that's when the magic happens. But if you're kind of already placing this pressure, already placing this expectation, then you're kind of stifling it before you even start. But maybe that works well for some other people. I guess maybe it depends on who you are as a person. But in my experience and in my clients' experience and people I've worked with, it's not that. So I don't know.
It usually doesn't work that way. We've lightly touched on your creative circles, but we haven't fully gone into exactly what those are specifically. Do you want to touch on that a little bit? Because I love that element of your work.
Yes. Yeah. So short answer, it's a guided meditation / creative writing workshop, but there's a bunch of different exercises that we do depending on the group. But it was that they were actually inspired by these women's circles and these moon circles I was attending in Bali, where it's in the yoga community. Like I would go to like a yoga school and they would have a women's circle and you would gather in a circle and we would set intentions. We would maybe pull cards and then there would be like a theme for the evening. And then we were like prompted to think about like a question or how that shows up in our lives. And then we shared, and it was like a very sacred space. There was candles and roses everywhere. And you just feel, as soon as you enter this intentional space, you feel held, and you feel like, I can let go. I can now connect with these random strangers that also came to this circle. But at the end, you feel uplifted, you feel connected, you have that community aspect. So I really wanted to take this idea of like a women's circle, but make it a creativity circle. So it's essentially that kind of framework of setting intentional sacred space and like gathering in community in a circle. And I love the idea of a circle because there's no hierarchy in the circle. You know, you're all connected and everyone has a voice. And so when you're in circle together, just like the symbol of circle, and then you have time to actually commune with your inner artist. So not only are you communing with your fellow creatives, with whoever happened to show up that day, but you're also setting intentional space with your inner artist, kind of like we were talking with the artist state, but this time in community. And so it's a chance to just slow down, listen to your inner voice. We'll start with a guided meditation, start with introductions and intentions. And it really changes from time to time, kind of depending on like the feel of the group. But some stuff that we've done in the past is some like creative writing prompts to kind of unlock that creativity. And we've also done eye gazing, which I love. I love eye gazing.
Cool.
And then one exercise I did with one group, we eye gazed, and then I told them to now create a gift for the person that you eye gazed with. And I love the idea of thinking of creativity as a gift, because I think we tell ourselves that it doesn't matter or that people don't care. But can you think about all of the, you know, anytime you've read a book or heard a song and you felt like it was such a gift. Like, can you imagine if your favorite artist had never released your favorite song or your favorite book or whatever it is, because they thought that nobody would care? And it's like, you have to think about your creativity as something to give, and you have to allow your creativity to be in that place of service, because when you're making it about you and like the ego, and you're holding yourself back from that because you're scared or you have all these things, you're actually doing everyone a disservice, because we do need your art. We do need your voice. We do need whatever wants to channel through you and your vessel. Like, we need your perspective. So it's so important to remember that your creativity, what you have to share with the world, is important and is needed. And please, we need the gift. So yeah, that's something like it holds such a deeper meaning for me, but it's like the way that we'll get into it is like, you're just creating a gift for this other person. And that just takes the pressure off of like you and making it about someone else, so that it's a little easier to kind of release and let go, if that makes sense.
Totally. And it's such a gift. I felt like I was going to start crying for a second when you were explaining that. It just like, oh, it struck, yeah, so deeply inside of me. Yeah. I love that.
Oh, I feel that. I love that.
Oh, for anyone who's not familiar, what is eye gazing?
Oh, great. I'm like, oh, there are people who don't know what eye gazing is. Of course. I love that.
I run into that problem, so I try to like,
thank you.
just be aware.
So eye gazing is, very simply put, staring into someone else's eyes. So you don't talk. So let's say that, you know, we're sitting across from each other in a cross-legged position, whatever is comfortable to you, and you just look and make eye contact with the other person, and you don't speak. You don't try to say, you don't try to make faces. You just sit and you just be. And it's such, oh my gosh, when people, I've been in classes and workshops, and we did this in my teacher training too, where we would eye gaze and people start laughing, people then start crying. There's so many different reactions that come up. And it's like, you allow whatever comes up needs to come through, because at first it's so uncomfortable to just sit and make eye contact with someone for that long, because we don't do that in our regular life. We don't see someone so fully. And so it will make you feel uncomfortable. You know, you might laugh, you might make jokes, whatever, then you have to get serious. You can't stop laughing. And then sometimes you can't stop crying, because something, you know, to have that feeling of like really being seen and like have someone look at you so intently is such a crazy experience. Yeah. And then it's like, without even knowing someone, you could do it with a stranger and you suddenly just like feel so connected to them because you just like feel and see their soul for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've experienced this, if you've ever done it, but
Yeah.
when I'm eye gazing, I like try not to blink that much. So then
Yep.
I kind of like my vision gets a little blurry and then I'll start to see faces shift. And
Yes.
it's like, yeah, and it's kind of like, well, is it because I'm not blinking? And so whatever, my vision is like whatever, but you get those like, whoa, I just saw you as this old lady. And it's like, I think I've seen your soul. Like, it's so wild.
Yes.
And you can eye gaze with yourself in the mirror. So if anyone's listening and is like, this sounds really weird, but maybe I want to try it in the mirror and just stare at yourself in the mirror and like really see yourself. And whenever I do it in the mirror, like I see my face like shape shift and it's so strange.
Same. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that you said that because that happens to me all the time. I especially love doing it with myself in the mirror. And I try to get my husband, I'm like, you have to try this, but he just doesn't quite get it.
Yeah.
But maybe because he will, maybe after listening to this, he'll give it another
Yes.
try
Or
privately.
you can try it together. It's a really beautiful,
Yeah.
like intimate exercise. My boyfriend's not into any of that stuff, but
Yeah.
it was like New Year's Eve and I made him do it with me. I was like, please just try it. And we had like a beautiful experience. So, and he was like into it after that. We haven't done it since. Maybe we'll come back to it. But
So fun.
yeah, even if they're not into it, try it.
Absolutely. I'll even too, this is a little weird, but my dog, when she looks out the window, she is like very intent with what she looks at, but a certain angle I can get her where I can just look right into her eye. And an animal's eye, I mean, an animal, can't directly stare back at you because they can't hold the attention that long, but their eye is the most beautiful thing. So I would definitely, you have cats, right?
I live with a dog.
You live with a dog. Okay. I felt like you had a cat for some reason. Maybe you have a cat coming to you.
Oh,
Anyway,
maybe.
you should try it with your dog though. It's so much fun. Just catch them when they're distracted and just like look. I mean, their eyes are amazing.
Oh,
They're
that's such
beautiful.
a good thing. I would have never thought to do that, but I'll definitely have to try that. I love that.
Oh, so much fun. Anyway though, oh, I love all of that. Yeah. So, so fun. You also hold a deep connection to the ocean. And your Instagram handle, I believe, is at the Modern Mermaid.
Yes, it's the underscore modern mermaid because I think the modern mermaid was taken, so I had to add an underscore, which I don't like, but you have to work with what you got.
Do what you can. I feel bad for our children and all the ones underneath of us because they're going to struggle to find Instagram handles. I'm sure kids.
Oh, that's so funny. I hadn't thought of that. It's like now, yeah, because when Instagram first started, it was like everything was available. But even
Mhm.
yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, like you'll probably they'll never get their like own name most likely.
No.
Maybe.
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah.
Anyway, though, I have a huge draw to the ocean myself. I know I have a lot of just mermaid energy and strongly feel that I have had past experience as a mermaid at some point. Atlantis is another one that just really draws to me. But in general, being by the ocean, being in the ocean, even just feeling sitting on the sand and like feeling the earth underneath is so important. And I know that you have those same callings and draws and everything. Do you want to explain kind of where that's come from or if it's just something that's always been inside of you?
Yeah, I love this question. I feel the same way that you do. And I love that you have that connection too. And I think a lot more people than we think have that connection.
Mm.
But yeah, my connection to the ocean is something that I've always had. It's like I've always been in love with the ocean. I didn't grow up actually near the ocean at all. The first like 14 years, no, the first like 18 years of my life, I didn't live by the beach. I would spend a week at the beach every summer with my family in a beach in New Jersey. And then I moved to California when I was a teenager, but we lived in Northern California, so we weren't near the beach. And then when I went to school in Orange County. And so then I was like at some of my most favorite beaches in the world, like Laguna Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, which they're amazing beaches. And then when I moved to Connecticut, it's also right on the Long Island Sound. So now since like college, I've always lived by the beach now. And it's like the ocean is where I get all of my inspiration. It's that the ocean itself just represents so many different things to me. It's like, first of all, what 70% of the earth is ocean.
Mhm.
Like and the fact that there's such a an underworld in the ocean. There's such a world that we haven't even discovered parts of the ocean. Like the fact that like we are sharing our earth home with all of these like aquatic beings, and the fact that it's still so mysterious to all of us, like there are depths we haven't explored, just fascinates me. And the whole idea of the tide and the cycles and the flow, like I think you like hear this from surfers too, but it's like there are so many lessons that the ocean has to teach us because it's such a wild, magical being. It's like Mother Earth personified. And we're so powerless against her, like the power that she has. And you really have to like respect her and honor her. And even like as simple as just, going to play in the ocean, it's like you'll get these waves that will knock you down over and over. And then you have to like learn to trust her rhythms and like feel into her rhythms, because when there's a super big wave, there's going to be a small wave after that. It's like you get to feel the like natural swell of the ocean. So I just find like all this metaphor and all this symbology, and also just like being with her, and like I could just watch her all day. She's gorgeous. Like I feel so content when I'm like just looking at the ocean, or like watching the sunset or watching the sunrise. Those are the moments where I feel the most alive. And so this whole idea of the mermaid, because now I've like made my whole brand about the mermaid. And I was thinking about that because I think now, like, I feel like a couple years ago, mermaids started to blow up. There was like all these t-shirts and like all this like merch that you could buy mermaid related.
And it was cool to like be a mermaid for Halloween as well. Like, which I did one year, and I was fully like, can I just be this all the time? It like to this day, it was my favorite Halloween costume of my life.
Oh, you have to send me a picture. I would love to see that.
Yeah. It was when I was like living in New York, actually. So it's funny.
Oh, really? Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, being a mermaid. And so like I think about what being a mermaid means to me, and it's so much more than like, oh, I have a tail and I want to live in the ocean. It's like the mermaid is this woman. She's like, first of all, she's half fish. So she's like this mystical, magical creature who sings. Like if you think about the story of Ariel, and like she uses her voice and then her voice is stolen from her, but she like breaks free to use her voice. It's like she sings, she's very sensual and like enjoys life's pleasures. And also like I have this thing on my blog that says like she's not afraid to like take a man down. Like the stories and the fables that we have about mermaids of like she lures the sailor and then kills him and drowns him. It's like, what? Like, not that that's great, but just like this badass woman that uses her beauty and her sensuality and like her connection to life to get what she wants. And not that we should, not take that leaf out of her book, because that's not great. But just the idea of like, she goes after what she wants. She knows what she wants. She goes after it. She has this deep connection to nature and to the spiritual, mystical forces that govern our universe. And like, oh gosh, it's just everything to me. And so people get confused, but it's like the sensual creative part of it is totally what ties into like how I feel and like how I want my life to feel.
Totally. And just even too, like, yeah, she sometimes might kill the sailor, but it also shows that as a woman, she feels empowered enough in herself to literally do what she wants, regardless of if she's a woman or not. It's just solely like, this is.
And then like the juxtaposition of the two. So it's like the light and the shadow side. So it's like that kind of like want to then kill the sailor. That's totally a shadow side that we need to examine. Like everyone needs to examine. So it's like she holds the light and the dark. And so how does that like work together? So yeah, there's just so much like symbology. Is that even a word? Symbology?
I don't think so, but we can make it a word.
I don't think it's a word.
I love it. I will probably start using it. So between the two of us, it's become.
That's definitely not a word, but you know what I mean? Like just oh my gosh, it's like everything. Like you can look so deep into it. And just the idea of like, there's always that quote you see that's like, it's like, oh, I don't like shallow waters. Like I like depth, or have you seen that quote?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something about that. But it's like, it's so true. It's like getting really deep into the truth of things and like going really deep and not being afraid of those depths and not being afraid of like those dark waters and the unknown, and like really like diving deep. So there
And
you
so
go.
oceanic as well. Like it'll be a rough sea one day, and then the next day it'll be completely calm, or you might have a beautiful morning and it'll get stormy in the afternoon. But it just shows that, just like this, like you always have that dark and lightness. So
Yes,
to just
totally.
surrender, and like the ocean will carry you. Try to
Yes,
not
the ocean will
resist.
carry you. Yeah, one of my favorite practices is floating in the ocean. And so like laying on my back and laying like with my head facing the waves, so like I can't see what's coming, and you literally surrender and allow the ocean to carry you. And you get like, my body will tense up because I'm scared, like I don't know what's coming. It's like, again, so much symbology, using my word, behind all of that, of like not knowing what's going to come, but fully trusting and fully surrendering and allowing her to carry you and trusting that she will keep you safe, because she does. And so that's a great practice. If you have an ocean near you, just floating and like seeing how long you can float for, and like really let go and really relax.
Oh, I love that. And then like when you want to tense up, to not let yourself and try to like resist the resistance, and just keep letting yourself float there. I just finished reading The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer for the second time.
Mm,
And
mm.
have you read that book before?
I have, but a long time ago. So
Okay.
this is my reminder
You
to read
should
it again.
reread it. I just got like, yeah, I probably will read it again in a couple of years, because the second time around was much different than the first time. But it reminds me of when he talks about keeping the heart open, and when in certain situations we immediately want to close the heart, close ourselves up, tense up, perceive judgment, et cetera, but just keep it open, like resist that closing. Like same thing in the ocean, just keep floating, like resist that urge to tense up, and just see how much more expansive.
Totally. It's like getting through the discomfort, and like you can use your breath to then like really breathe into it and relax into it. And like, and again, those will come in waves, like metaphorically, that will come in waves. Your emotion will come in waves. So it's like, can you get through that uncomfortable feeling instead of giving up and like swimming back to shore? Or can you really like go deeper and trust? And like, that's when so much more insight and like growth happens.
Mm, I love that. We mentioned your Instagram handle a little bit ago, but for anyone who wants to connect with you or even attend, because I believe your creativity circles, you've been hosting them virtual because of COVID. Is that right?
Yes, right. Yeah, we've been doing them over Zoom, which have been working well. I run a larger group. So the creativity circles so far have just been like a one-time thing. So again, it's not like a extended thing that you would go to week after week. So you could come once, you could come never, you could come 3 times, like, it'll be different every time. But I've been running this like longer group called Writing Magic, which is more of a creative writing guided meditation workshop, where we're like using the art of writing to really get deep in ourselves and like uncover everything that subconsciously wants to come through, and like opening up that channel. And so I've been doing all of those virtually. And it's been working well, because it's like all you need is a space where you can be by yourself and something to write with, and maybe something like a place where you won't get too distracted. But it's actually been nice to like still have that connection, and then knowing that like, because like in the writing group that I'm running now, I have a woman from Switzerland, I have a woman from Canada. Like it's like all these people from around the world, and we're getting to see each other on Zoom and like make connection and really go deep together and be vulnerable and share what we're writing about and like share our stories. And it's really beautiful, the like growth that happens. I think held intentional community is like everything that we need, especially right now.
Yeah.
But so yeah, virtually, I've been doing them virtually because of COVID, but I feel like that medium still works.
Mm-hmm. I love that. The internet world, when done intentionally, there's so much beauty and connection that comes from it. It's limitless. Where can people find you or connect with you if they're interested in maybe linking up or kind of learning more about you?
Yes, I love that. So the best place, my Instagram, like we mentioned, is at @the_modern_mermaid. And then that will link you to my website, which is the-modernmermaid.com. And for my website, you'll find information about workshops, about one-on-one sessions. Let's see, I have a blog that you can find too also there. And then I also started a podcast, which is fun. I'll have to have you on my podcast now.
Yes, that's right. I wanted to mention that. What is the name of your podcast so people can follow along?
It's called the Creative Soul Podcast. And yeah, it's a podcast about really everything we've been talking about, but about the intersection between creativity and spirituality, and like sitting down and interviewing creatives about their process, how they deal with their creative blocks. Because again, this is something that like I think about all the time. This is my whole life. And I'm like, let me talk to other people and how do they do it? So it's kind of a learning moment for me to talk to people and get inspiration from them and then sharing that with people. So yeah, it's a new project, but it's one I'm excited about because it kind of like melds all my interests together.
So cool. I love podcasts too because you can say a lot more than you can on like an Instagram platform, and people are so judgy and dark on Instagram right now. Podcasting, just the energy feels really vibrant, which is
Yeah, because it feels like, oh, this is just a conversation between me and you. And then who knows who's listening to it right now or who will listen to it. But it's such an intimate space,
mm-hmm.
but that can be spread so it can be shared so widely,
Yes.
which is really cool. And yeah, I like listening to podcasts that have happened like years ago. And it's cool to like,
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, and then to like be like, oh, did this person ever think that like 5 years later I was gonna be listening to their interview or their conversation and get inspiration from it? Like, what? That's so cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So cool. Yeah. It's like an intimately large space that,
Yeah.
again, it feels limitless as well. Well, before we close out our episode, I do like to end with some loving your own soul questions, which are just some kind of fun on the spot questions that I usually will intuitively kind of pick out the questions before we get started, but some I kind of just come up with on the spot as well. But what we were just talking about a little bit earlier with the ocean, are you more of a sunrise or a sunset person?
Sunset, absolutely. But the sunrise is also very beautiful, but more of a sunset. So I have to be on the West Coast for that to see the sunset on the beach.
True. Do you have a favorite piece of work of yours or creative art or something that you've created over the years?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. I think that the one woman show that I talked about earlier, I think I'm most proud of that because that's one of the first times that I told my stories as me and not playing a character. And like it was, I wrote it, I performed it, like it was just me sharing my stories really authentically and really vulnerably, like without hiding behind any mask or hiding behind any character. So I think that would probably be my favorite because it just represented this kind of beautiful moment of finally like stripping down and like stripping bare and just trusting that I am enough and my stories are enough and what I have to share is enough.
Amazing. That's so cool. Do you have a favorite color or a color that you feel kind of resonates deeply with your soul?
Yes, I love teal, which probably comes to no surprise, but I love teal. It's such a mermaid color, like reminds me of the ocean. Any kind of like deep blue ocean colors. Oh, love.
Yeah, I feel that same. And I think it will always be. I used to think like, oh, that's been my favorite, always been my favorite. Like I should have a new favorite color, which is again, silly, but humans. And then I was like, no, like this is my favorite. Like this will always be my favorite color.
Yes, this is it. Like I own it. I love that.
Exactly. What season do you feel kind of like most connected or at peace with?
That's such a good question because each of the seasons, again, like we've been talking about cycles this whole time, each of the seasons represents such a different like period. And so if you think about like summer, fall, winter, spring, every month as a woman, our bodies go through a summer, fall, winter, spring as like we're shedding and we're whatever. Everyone should read the book Wild Power, which explains more of like this idea about cycles in your in your monthly cycle, but then if you're thinking about the yearly cycle as Earth. So I would say, I want to say everything but winter, because that's when I feel like fall, I feel cozy. Summer, I feel alive and like things are happening. Spring, I feel like possibilities are endless. And winter is always hard because it feels like pause and it feels like hibernation. And that sometimes can get hard, especially I hate when it gets dark really early.
Yes.
but every season kind of brings you a lesson that you need. So yeah, I don't know if I have like a super favorite. It's just like I love all of them, and there are things with all of them that I don't love so much.
Cool. I love that explanation. I haven't heard that before, but I resonate a lot with that. That's cool. What was that book you said? The Wild Power?
Wild Power by Sajani Pope. It's like there's two authors. It's Alexander something and Sajani Pope. Siani Pope. But if you look up Wild Power, you'll find it.
Yeah. I'll link it in the show notes, but I haven't heard of that before. So I am going to add that to my list. I love reading. We talked about travel earlier. Do you have a dream vacation or destination you'd like to travel to?
Yes. I like to say that I want to visit every single island on planet Earth. I want to go to all of the islands. So like Bora Bora, like French Polynesia. I really want to go to Australia. I have never been to Australia, and I feel connected to Australia. Like I feel like the culture there I would vibe with. Mm-hmm. And then most recently, I really have been wanting to visit Mexico and like explore more parts of Mexico.
Yes. Have you been to Mexico before?
I've been, but only to Rosarito, which is like on the West Coast, kind of below Tijuana. Yeah. So I've never been to like Cancun or Tulum or any of those places. And I'm like, I think I need to go there next.
Cool, for sure. My husband and I, we went a few years ago, but just north of Cancun is a little island called Holbox, which is very Tulum 40 years ago, maybe. We went like 3 years ago, so it might have changed a little bit, but Holbox is amazing. It's like a 2-hour bus ride, and then you have to take a ferry ride, and then it's this little tiny island where we rented a golf cart thinking we needed it, but really you can walk the entire island. So it's very small. It's amazing. But I've also been to Tulum, and for Tulum being, such a well-known spot, it is such an amazing spot. I felt so connected when I got there. I definitely plan on going there for like a couple weeks and fully diving into Tulum. So maybe we can meet there sometime and do a friend trip. Would be so fun, because I think
I would love that. Oh my gosh, you just kind of confirmed something I've been thinking about, because I've been wanting to like get away somewhere for a month, and I've been thinking about Tulum, but I've been like kind of nervous because like, what if travel shuts down and then I can't leave? Like, all those fears. But you kind of just confirmed that, like, take the leap. Just
and worst case, if it did, you would feel very comfortable there.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good.
If something crazy.
But I could stay there for a while if I had to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so fun. All right. Well, final question that I ask all of my guests. When did your exploration to diving deeper into your own soul first begin? And how has it evolved since then?
Wow. I would say, it's hard because I'm like, well, consciously or unconsciously? But consciously, I think that the time that I spent at the ashram as a teenager was where it all started. And I feel like now I'm kind of like completed this one cycle of it. And now I'm getting even deeper, and like more things are opening up. Because at the ashram, I was learning for the first time about yoga and meditation and like Hinduism and all these different things. And now I've gone on my own journey with it and kind of discovered my own intuition through the process. And now I feel like I'm in the next cycle where something that's really present for me in like the evolution of our souls is, I sat in an ayahuasca ceremony a few months ago, and that opened up so much for me, and like understanding who we are as souls and where we come from, and like what does the afterlife look like, and like where do we go when we die. And I've been reading a couple books that speaks on these questions. 2 books that I'll recommend is Journey of Souls by Michael Newton and Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss, I think. And those books kind of go into these like hypnosis regression sessions with their patients where the soul remembers who we are. And a big thing of my ayahuasca journey was like remembering who I am, because in our human body, we forget, like we live with amnesia. We're born with amnesia. We don't remember where we came from, but there's so much more to this reality. And there's so much more to who we are and what we're here to do, that like, I'm just thinking about it now in such a opened, expansive way that like now I feel like I'm on this whole other path that's just I'm excited to see where it's going to catapult me to, or who knows, or like maybe, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Oh my gosh. So fun. I have not done ayahuasca yet myself. I was feeling super called to it last fall. I thought about doing it before I got married. It didn't end up working out. And I hadn't really been feeling that called to it, except the last like month or couple weeks. It's kind of been like coming back to me. So, and like the medicine, she has to find you. So
Yeah.
it's funny that you just mentioned that because I'm like, okay, again, maybe like,
Yeah, it comes up. And like, right, when you're feeling called to it, you'll keep hearing about it. So it's like, maybe this is one sign that you needed, and you're going to keep, those signs will keep coming.
Yeah, totally. Oh, so fun. I also would love to almost record a whole nother episode about your experience on the ashram, because I think that is so just fascinating and kind of full circle. Maybe we'll do like a part 2 in 20.
Yeah, that would be fascinating because I don't talk about it with a lot of people because again, it has been this like shameful part, but it's a very interesting thing that I think can go wrong because humans are running it, if that makes sense. But the idea of it's like communism, like the idea is great, but in practice, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And in this situation, I feel like that's the situations that I've seen. And maybe it does work. Hope, who knows?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Also, your experience with it and emotions towards it to me make perfect sense because, of course, through it as a child, those teenage years, like it makes so much sense of why it wasn't appreciated then. Like I sit here, I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. But in reality, going through that, I wouldn't have enjoyed it then. Like right now, it sounds cool.
Right. Like as a teenager, I was like 14. I was like, this is so weird. Get me out.
So funny. Well, Leya, thank you so much for being on here. This was such a gift. I so loved our conversation and connecting with you, and I so appreciate you holding the space with us.
Thank you so much for having me. You're a beautiful freaking light, and like I just feel so comfortable with you, and thank you for opening up the space and asking such good questions. So thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. Was that not just such a fun episode? I swear, Leya dropped just so many bits of knowledge and mic drops and so much insight, and you can truly just feel her completely speaking through her heart. It is such a beautiful thing to see. I hope you all enjoyed our time with Leya. Definitely go connect with her on Instagram or check out her website so that you can attend some of her virtual offerings, as she is truly such an inspiration and a light to all of us. I am so grateful to have connected with her, and I am so grateful to have all of you continuing to tune in on the podcast. This has been such a fun journey thus far, and I am truly grateful for all of you for continuing to tune in and listen and just be a part of things. It's honestly such a gift. If you are enjoying your time on the podcast, definitely feel free to leave a rating and review if you feel called to do so. As you probably know by now, the best way for podcasts to really grow their legs and continue to get more and more listeners and ears is through the power of ratings and reviews and sharing on social media. So if you elect to do so, share in any way. I would love to exchange the favor by sending you my free plant-based ebook, which has so many different recipes in it. It's such a good one. But in order to get my special gift to you, all you have to do is leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, screenshot it for proof, and then email it to me at lovingyourownsoul@gmail.com, and I will, in exchange, send you my special gift. Thank you all so much again for tuning in, and I will see you soon.